Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and Slanesh chariots to that 6+++ show. It's an emergency show. It's a Dataslate show. We have had a bountiful Dataslate. We've been gifted an awful lot of stuff. We've had a busy day passing through some of it and starting to make sense of it. I'm hoping others can fill the gaps in my brain because me and Jack, as you will have seen on our videos, have been very busy going through the detachments because we've got detachments, guys. So there's a lot to talk about. I think we're going to do it in macro. We'll talk about the kind of what we're getting from this slate, the overall key headlines, and then if the guys have special interests they want to dive into, I'm very happy to open that up and people can talk about things. I think for quite a lot of factions, this is a relatively quiet slate. There's not a ton of movement in the fat middle, as you were, but there are certainly some extremes, certainly some cool things happening, and obviously perhaps the headline, and we'll start with the headline, is that we got 4 new detachments, and we've been informed we're going to get new detachments every quarter. How do we feel about that as a thing, guys?
Well, that's wildly exciting.
Yeah.
Well, that keeps things fresh, doesn't it?
It really does.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't read that. I missed that completely. So that's new to me.
So
that is wild.
Because it was a bit of a surprise to get new stuff today, and it's sort of obviously we just had Grotmus, which in terms of ambition was again nuts. And now, they're very much wanted to sort of patching in some new stuff on the regular, getting things going, which I think is really, really interesting. Definitely very exciting. And I guess the possibilities feel slightly endless with that, right? There's so many different things you can parachute in.
Absolutely. The only downside is more reading to be done.
Yeah,
more rules to understand.
We're definitely going to hit just tell me what it does, man. I don't know. Before long. I think I've felt like that ever since Grotmus a little bit. Like I've felt like out in especially competitive scene, just like I don't know everything I'm going to hit. I know I'm just going to stumble through a couple of things. But actually, I think for overall meta health, that's a massive positive because you've got so many new things coming in and so many different directions being pursued that you avoid that kind of monoculture at the top of the game, which we saw a lot in 9th that was very tedious, right? So I think that's the big upside of regular new detachments, especially if they are juicy. And obviously, we've got some juicy ones. And so, we'll talk a little bit about those in outline in a moment because myself and Jack obviously had a read through 3 of them today. We've got another one which I've just started to get my teeth into as well. So we'll talk about those as the starting point, and then we will dive into talking about all the other stuff, what happened, and the 10-point drops on witches and Cavalites and very dramatic things like that to really get your juices flowing. Obviously, you, the chat, have the power to guide us here. You can let us know what you'd like to talk about, ask us questions. We're very happy to be involved with you. Thanks very much for supporting us. Please do hit the old like and subscribe. Please do leave comments. It all helps our videos go to the places they want to go. And we've been doing great lately. It's all thanks to you guys and the audience participation. It's helping us go to new heights, which is really awesome. You want to sign up and become a YouTube member and support us financially, you can do that too. If you want to send in a super chat, we will answer it immediately and possibly in a silly accent. And obviously, if you do want to get some 40k coaching and learn one of the new detachments, myself, Ed Watts, Chris, and Rob Kimpton and Lewis, currently active to do coaching. We've got a whole new Discord set up for that. Very happy to help you out if you'd be interested. That's the promotion done. That's the boring stuff done. I'm going to read out some comments. We'll get into it. So, Scrivo is, as ever, in the chat and in the show. He's never in just one place.
I'm everywhere.
He's very hyped. Brenso says, Lordy, I'm ready for takes so hot they melt my tires on the bike ride home. Yeah, I'm very... I don't know if we'll be covering sort of particularly controversial around here. It feels like there's a lot of consensus over what we're seeing, but maybe Jack can provide some controversy. He can be good for that sometimes if you need him to sort of take a different angle, I think. And Gordy says, just wanting Jack to be happy. Well, Jack was very happy earlier on, and I'm excited to... Now he's had some time to digest it. It'll be nice to chat with him again and see how he's feeling.
It's too much work on a right list, I swear to God.
Bring back war gear points, then you'd be sad.
To be fair to Jack, he's at our GT this weekend, and he's got to now write a list for the new detachment. That's quite an assignment, right?
Why did you announce that? Because I was thinking maybe don't bother and run Montcar instead. Now I've got to do it.
Too late.
Think of the content, Jack. Think of the post-event interviews. Cracking Matt in the chat says, just 3 more balanced data slates until Death Company are playable. Yeah, fair enough. We'll see. Death Company had their moment. You all did some stuff with Death Company. You know it. So they can sit on the bench.
I'm not sorry.
They can live on the bench for just a little bit and chill out. Sean Catewell says Scrivo is looking very green indeed. Scrivo, is that perhaps a portent of your mood and your feelings?
No, it's because I'm a Dark Angels player.
Oh, that's fair enough. I thought it might be because
it's probably because the Orcs might leave my garage for the first time in an army box that isn't being lent to someone.
Very, very exciting. I was actually going to try and borrow your Orcs, so that's a shame.
Oh, what a shame, Tom.
Yes, it is a green time, a very green time, which we'll move into. I mean, that's where we should obviously start, right? We've got 4 new detachments. We've got Detachment, Chaos Demons, Shadow Legion. We've got a detachment for the Custodies, the Lions of the Emperor. We've got a detachment for the Orcs, more Daka. Got a detachment for the Tower, the experimental prototype gun makeup weapons cadre thingy.
You were there until you added all the extra words.
I know. That's it. I was like, because I was flying purely on just memory bank there. Like I had no idea, and actually got it, and then fucked it anyway. So I think, Jack. I think I'm gonna sort of open up the floor to you on this because you obviously you sat in on the shows and you were providing a lot of analysis earlier on, and you've had probably a lot of time to now mull that and think it. But in terms of the actual armies being juiced up here and given new toys. What's the feeling? Were these well targeted detachments to be putting out into the game?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for the most part, I think
with one notable exception.
Yeah, also kind of overlapping a little bit on what they already have, which is a bit of a disappointment. Custodies get a "Here We're Sorry" attachment, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then Orcs kind of have Tau kind of have. We have a lot of detachments that are very complicated, a lot of hoop jumping. So they just kind of give one that's like, here you go, just have some shooting phase damage buffs. Fuck it.
You like shooting, right? That's what you guys like. Shoot better.
Yeah, it's just you have to think about it. Just shoot. Yeah, shoot harder. That's all there is to it. So that's good.
Yeah, and I think it's fair. All these attachments are fan service in a way, right? And obviously that's what putting 40k rules out is fan service. But I think it's nice to get it mid-edition and between books because you can see that they take on things that are directly things people have asked for. I don't actually think any Orc players were saying we'd like to shoot harder than we're currently shooting. I don't think that was something they were necessarily requesting, but it certainly buffs up the walkers. Custodies, that detachment feels incredibly Custodies. I certainly know that our very own Captain Chris has piped up about playing Custodies for literally the first time in a very, very long time, which means it must be good. Probably too good because he wouldn't be excited otherwise. But so that's exciting too. And then I think the Tau one, from what we were saying, Jack, I think it's flexible, but also just straight up makes a bunch of things you'd want to be better. So that's nice.
Yeah, it's just simple and straightforward, really, which is kind of what's been missing from Tau detachments. So that's nice to see. Yeah, it's solid.
Yeah, absolutely. And then now the Demons one, we've not actually done the dive on yet. We will do that soon. I was conscious there were changes in the units, in the data sheets, in the actual roster for Demons. There was a lot, which hopefully someone will be able to unpack for me. So I didn't want to go on live on stream and then say, oh, this will go really well on your Slanesh chariots. And Karanak loves the advance and charge buff in the corn area. And just basically put my foot in my mouth repeatedly. So we've avoided that for this one. We've got a question in the chat. Brainsetter asks, Scribber, are you bringing that new Rowdy Orcs detachment to the Invitational at the end of the month?
Unfortunately, I am not playing in the Invitational, but it might be the ringer list. So
if you want, you can have my spot, mate, and play. No, I'll TO
I'm
instead.
Good, Tom. I want to make sure that everyone's having a great experience, and then, if needed, that feels like that's how you run an event well, rather than trying to take over an event.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got we're all traveling up to Barnsley on the Friday with a bunch of things that have got interesting buffs to have some battle reps made before our event starts this weekend. So there will be a few quite cool armies in the mix as potential ringer options across the event. We'll see what the ringer situation ends up being, but obviously we'll have several Plus armies with Plus players ready to go. You might get to play against Scribber on the Orcs. You might get to play against Davey on final day. Might get to play against me on half band. Who knows? It could be anything. It'll be a good time. Ed Watts is here, and he's brought his very own kangaroo-themed chat that was going on in our main chat earlier on to the Dataslate chat. And Alex Fowler is in as well. Lovely to have you here, Alex Fowler. Sorry, I can't imagine the Thousand Suns buffs are exactly what Alex Fowler was hoping for, but we'll get to that a little bit.
Just playing this small Zinchian violin for him. Here you go.
So if we're talking in terms of the sort of the game impact of our 4 detachments, Jack, do you have any sort of thoughts and summaries on that? and then I can sort of expound a little bit, and we can think about the demons one as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the Orc one, I think, there's a lot of raw power in there, as we've gone over before. The fact that they've got probably the best close combat damage output increased stratagem Orcs have available in their shooting detachment, and also the fallback shooting charge in their shooting detachment is quite good. And those are probably two of the most wanted tools, I would say, in an Orc detachment. And if you look through other Orc detachments, not just tactical, but like the other ones as well, you think, what are you giving up in these to take the other buffs in the Orc shooting one? Mordaka. I look at Warhorde, and you like, okay, we're giving up the sustained hits in close combat, but you get sustained hits in range. It's probably better, to be fair. Depending on what units you take, you definitely build your armor around that. So I think we're going to see Orcs like use this probably predominantly. I think Custodes are going to use theirs predominantly. I think the majority of the faction representation will be that, because it is just rules that you want to have for Custodes that they just
it plays to the Custodes player dream, right? Here are my golden men who are better than you, and let's do the thing.
It's all the rules that you wanted from the Codex that you weren't allowed to have, but now you're allowed to have them. And then the Tau one, I think it's probably just because I'm a Tau player and I can see the flaws in it, but it's probably, in terms of raw power, it's probably the least of the three, because it doesn't have like a clear, like it doesn't have the raw damage output of the Orcs, but it doesn't have the clear like role of like anti-melee and just generally good stuff of Custodes.
For sure.
But it does have a lot of really cool things. Like getting a detachment rule for all 5 turns is something that people really want. Not something that I'm massively care either way about. Like you can take it or leave it, right? It's just the mechanic is what it is. But there is just a lot of like very simple, just shoot them and that's fine, and you don't have to worry about auxiliaries. You don't have to worry about when you're doing stuff. You can just do it, and then that's it. The downside there, I guess, is that this is kind of like the detachment that everyone thinks Tau is all the time. But this detachment is going to shoot like how everyone thinks Tau always shoots. It may become a little bit unpleasant for people.
It's interesting. I think it will take Tau up, but I think, as you said, I mean, we discussed it when we did the video, and obviously if people want to watch the dedicated videos, Jack and I have been through the Custodes, the Orcs, and the Tau today, so that's all on the channel. But I think we felt, although it juices things up, it's honest, right? It's not, you're not looking at that. There's not any crazy tricks in there, and I think the game in general in 10th has been written and balanced in such a way that just shooting good doesn't get you home in and of itself, right? And to be fair, maybe the Orcs will find that, but obviously the Orcs have a combat boost in this attachment. That's the thing. So it's like, I think it'll be interesting to see with Tau, but I think it'll probably take some levels up, but I don't think it's going to be the case that it's going to be oppressive. I think probably, as you say, the meta-defining ones are probably the Orcs. I think will pivot from tactical to this and actually probably be better for it. I do think demons will unleash quite a lot of stuff. I think demons have been down the Slaanesh rabbit hole. Slaanesh is obviously very good, but for reasons we'll get to, it's dead now. And I think demons in Shadow Legion, that toolkit is actually very powerful, opens up a lot of different avenues, especially you can skew into different gods. Some fun stuff with Suping CSM, a lot of non-interactive melee murder. So a lot of fun with it, but probably more in the previous vein of demons, where they had their weak spots in the meta, but they were very strong into the things they were very good into, and it's not quite as much gonna flatten you, and there's nothing you can do that as Slaanesh perhaps was. So I think it's interesting. Custodes, I can't gauge the power on Custodes at all, but I know Custodes players will enjoy playing that rule set, and I think that in itself is meta defining because it will get them out. They'll be out and about. I think that's the full detachment. I don't know, Ben, John, what are your thoughts? Have you had much time to look into these yet?
So the whole kind of vibe of it gave me kind of throwbacks. So the defining kind of way the Orcs played in 8th edition was a big gun line.
Yeah.
And then things like the whole fallback and shoot or fallback and charge, they got given in the later end of 9th edition. So it's giving Orc players what they kind of clamoured for.
Yeah.
But in a way that kind of makes me feel like that we might not see all of our releases completely defined by having codexes now. Like, if they're releasing stuff every quarter, do they need to do a new codex every 3 years? That was my question.
That's interesting.
Is this the start of the end of the codex cycle?
Yeah,
I don't know. That's the thing that this got me leading to. Is like, if they're going to keep churning them out,
it's a step towards sort of video game regular balance patch type vibes, right? Which actually I think for anyone playing the game competitively on the regular is fantastic because it stays fresh. I think it'll be daunting for more casual players to dip into because the landscape will change so quickly and so often. But no, I think you're completely right on that. I don't personally want codexes to go away altogether.
No.
But what I absolutely do prefer is there not being like one moment in a 3-year cycle when your stuff happens and then you have to sit out.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
So maybe
it's something that Jack and I talked about on the show as well, because the balance is the same. So it's like, say, as someone who's sat here, I can count the 6 painted orcs that I own on my desk here. And so a voice in my head might go, "Oh, you should go and play more Dakar." But it's like, but actually, by the time I'd painted a more Dakar, it'll be gone. It'll be, they'll adjust it and fix it and sort it, move it on. And that's the nice thing now. It's like it's not so much a wheel where you're chasing after. It's more that the different fan bases are getting rewarded. Cool, Ben. Any thoughts from you?
I just think I think they're really thematic. I quite like the Custodes one. Like I'm just here.
It's so good.
The Custodes one. I looked at it and I was like, that just feels very Custodes. That feels like the Custodes I know and hate. Like I'm going to absolutely not enjoy playing against 18 individual little Terminators rocking around the board. It's just really annoying. But they look like really good, a good rule set for them. And same with
completely agree.
The Tau one. Obviously we were talking. So far, I've just been disrespecting Tau, and I'm looking at it now. I'm like, oh, maybe I can't do that quite so much. I mean,
I think the boost on the range, I think healing ghost kills and riptides is no joke. That's very, very funny. Some very cool stuff.
Just like little relic weapons coming back, like that's quite good. That's just cool.
The commander's toolkit is definitely fun. I think that's really, really cool. So yeah, it's interesting. I think from a sort of balance standpoint, I completely get the Tau, the Custodes. I get to an extent the demons, because demons are in this frightening liminal space between states of being, where it's like, are they a thing? Are they not? What's the future? And then I think the general consensus is probably going to be that we just had a lot of Orc gun good, so it's a surprise to have more. But hey, it's all right. Yeah. Orcs in some ways got a slightly weird service with their book, because it had a very short-lived moment before it was immediately sort of nerfed back to playing Warhorde, and then obviously tacticals come more recently in life.
It's very shoehorned, isn't it? It was one of the few codex. Like, there's been a couple now that have had that. It's only these units work in this detachment, and that felt like a really rubbish design space. And they seem to be stepping away from that. Like the Tau one is a little bit more generalist. Would you say, Jack? Like, it's not like one's your suits one type of thing. It's a bit more wider.
It applies to a lot of. It's one of the few detachments we have where most of the rules apply to everything. So most of it's Tau Empire coded. Yeah. There are a couple of things that are battlesuit only. But those are things that you want to use on battlesuits anyway, so you don't really care. But yeah, it's I'm very high on this. I like the look of this. I understand there's a lot of people out there that don't like it. And who will immediately, just because they don't have the 10th edition tricks, there's no, as I said it in the review, there's no reactive moves, there's no uppy downy, there's no any of that sort of stuff, right? And there's no like movement shenanigans. Does it suck to see Orcs get sustained 2 all the time for the entire game? We only get it for 3 turns and have to do this guiding thing. Yeah, sure. Like it swings and roundabouts though, right? Like you gain other stuff and lose other stuff for that, so it doesn't really bother me. But yeah, it's I like this attachment. Long story short, I think it has a lot of potential to it. I think we kind of end in a nice space where I think we have 4 Tau attachments that are all generally balanced against each other.
Yes, yeah.
I don't think necessarily that. I don't consider Crew Hunting Pack to be a part of Tau. It's a different army. It's a different army entirely, so we won't worry about that one.
Yeah.
And Ret Cadre is still ass. Fight me. I don't care what anyone says.
I wanted it to work so badly.
Yeah.
Well, it's just it's no 3-inch super strike is brutal for that.
I mean, you've got 1 stratagem, right? That makes a good attachment.
Yeah. Sure.
But yeah, so if you like your battle suits, you can run this instead, and it's basically as good. So
yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah, very nice. And so that takes us from the sort of the top of the tree, all the coolest things. And we're going to work our way down now and start thinking about some overall balance adjustments to different factions. And I think it's interesting trying to pass through it. I guess it might be nice to just get a general sort of state of things for the Space Marines script, seeing as you're our Space Marines in-house expert. How are things looking for that?
So they've corrected the whole, if you're playing a non-compliant chapter's detachment but not using their units. So they've now keyed that into the plus to wound only works if you're using one of the original Codex ones or the Librarius Conclave, which I think fixes it, makes sense.
Yeah.
And then it's been quite light touches outside of that. They've not gone after Gilliman's double oath, which I think will annoy a lot of people. But when you look at the lists, everything around him has changed.
Yes.
So Ventress has lost the being able to give deep strike to just anything infantry. It's now locked into Tacticus and Phobos and another keyword, which means Centurions are out. So
which brings an end to one of the longest standing sort of weird, unexpected builds from this edition, right? The old uppy-downy Centurions.
Yeah. And then things like Calgar's had a points hike. All the tanks that you're seeing 2s and 3s of have had a hike. The Ballistas has gone up again, back up to 140. It's all stuff that won't kill their use, but we'll see people not just going, right, I'm taking 3 Vindicators.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to build a list.
And I wouldn't say, I don't think the Ultramarines lists have been like rich on units.
No,
I said whatever their issues is a competitive thing, and I think actually, to be honest, we don't have much evidence that says they were ever too good. Like, I think they were strong. I think they're
a mid-table bully a lot of the time.
I think that was it, and they've certainly had success in recent times, but it's not suppressed the entire field. There's plenty out there that gives them a game. Ed Brockhurst in the chat says, I think Ultramarines were let off. I think it's lighter touch, but they did still get touch. I think they did get touch. And they will lose another unit now, for sure, in those common builds. Obviously, the interesting thing with a range as deep as Marines is can they just pivot and find the next thing that's a bit cheaper and move on? But that'll be interesting. Yeah. So what are the big changes?
And then there's only really 2 other changes outside of that. So things like Dark Angels, Black Templars, Space Wolves haven't really been touched. The 2 other changes that actually will matter is the Stormlance reactive move is now keyed to infantry and mounted. So you're not going to have Imperium Primarchs reactive moving, which, as funny as it is, I don't think that was ever their intent. And then the Lieutenant in Phobos armor, you could get it so that he could drop a unit in with deep strike, reactive move, and then charge. They've now said he cannot charge now, which I think is healthy because any of those interactions they've gotten out of the game.
Sure. So just smoothing out. Yeah. It's light touch, right?
Yeah. So it's just fixing things that obviously were working the way that they weren't meant to. So it feels all kind of healthy. Things like Space Wolves, there's nothing happening to them, or Templars, which feels a shame. But I feel like Space Wolves are rumoured to be getting their own splash release down the line. So I feel like you just got to grin and bear it, right?
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think it's okay. I think Marines. There's a weird sort of there's a shuffling around of points on the units as well. There's a few things got cheaper. I saw Blade Guard went down. There's a few little gives to compensate, but obviously the nudging on the shooting tanks. Alex Fowler in the chat says reactive moving a Dreadnought into a Storm Raven is dead. That is obviously sad. That's a sad time. Because that is really funny. I don't care what anyone says. That's hilarious.
It's awful.
And I think Marines. The reality is the last set of changes they got opened up so many potential options and directions for them that I'm sure we'll see a bunch more stuff. I think probably the no Blood Angels, it was undeniably good. It was also probably the least interesting expression of Space Marines out there in terms of it's literally just the standard units, but you just make them a bit stronger. Give them +1 to wound. That's not exciting for anyone involved. So I think I'm happy that's gone. Ultramarines have more flavour than that for whatever their sins. So
now we get the same builds, but just without the Blood Angels detachments, which is much more interesting.
They'll pivot to the next thing instead.
And that's inevitable, right? But that's where the rotation of us getting this every couple of months isn't bad, because if it becomes an issue, they'll dunk it. They'll do something. Absolutely. So,
Sean Capel says sins and then a smiley face. Nice to have you here, Sean. You know what you did. You all know what you did.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting for Marines. Obviously, Marines are there's a whole wealth of things that could be explored. There's also a tendency towards kind of herds, and I think we'll see what the next direction for is. It is maybe it'll be Dark Angels, not Dark Angels, and you'll have no Dark Angels units, but use that incredible set of detachments instead. John, what do you think?
Deathwing Knights is good still.
Yeah, Deathwing Knights are just good still. Yeah,
they have had no points changes, which tells me it'll just be carrying on, and it'll just be the different las cannon platforms will be switched out and swapped out, but otherwise it'll be very much the same.
Yeah,
and it will be Stormlance, and it'll be boring. And I love it.
Absolutely. So that's the Marines. I guess we can branch out and think about some other Imperial options, and obviously, guys, do feel free to chime in if there's something you're interested in talking about. I guess one of the miracles of the slate is the resurrection of the Sisters of Battle. They have been, they obviously, again, they did some stuff with tanks. They got punished. They disappeared. Now they've been given some drops on some of their combat units, but also I think they've got their miracle dice generation back, I believe. I don't know if that was the exact.
It's now when they're destroyed.
Nearly, isn't it? Yeah.
So it's not quite as generous as before.
Yeah.
Because they used to get one at the start of each player's battle round, right? And now they just get one in their own. Is that right?
It's the start of battle round rather than turns. It used to be turns, didn't it? Yeah. Now it's and destroyed.
So it's that and when stuff is destroyed.
So they're basically losing 5 in the game overall from Codex, which is basically nothing in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that would be very interesting. Obviously, we have Sisters expert Aiden Brockhurst in the chat. I'd really like to know, Aiden. Does this bring Sisters back? Does this open up, for example, the Grotmus Detachment? Does it open up Penitent Host? Is there enough juice here, or is it a case that the directions they clearly want you to pivot aren't gonna hang? I think it's very interesting.
Do you want me to run through the changes super quick because there's not many?
Yeah, sure thing, man.
So we've already talked about the rules change for the Miracle Dice, but there's also so it's minus 20 points for big units of Celestians, minus 10 points for Dominions, minus 5 points for Repentia on each squad size. Seraphim, 20 points for the bigger squad, 5 for the little one, and then Seraphim 5 for each 5. So it's just a bunch of point decreases.
Yeah, there's little things, right? It'll add up though when an army like that, and it's going to squeeze another unit somehow. Yeah. So I think it's solid. Anyone got strong feelings on where this leaves Sisters?
It feels like a soft touch, but I'm glad it's a soft touch with the points, because if they'd over-egged it, we'd see these combat armies being a bit too cooked, and then I fear they'd then slap it back the other way. So I'd rather they kind of had to do it in 2 stages, so I'm hopeful.
I think that the win rate that Sisters had before this patch weren't representative of how good they were. In the sense that I think they really suffered from competitive abandonment really hard.
Completely.
So they probably weren't like as bad as like 40% win rate. They were probably like a 45-ish kind of in reality in terms of like state of their faction. But I think the Miracle Dice thing is the big one, because that basically fuels a lot of their detachments, like their Grotmus one and stuff like that. So it gives them a lot of play. I don't think that's something that is very easy to look at on paper and judge how well that's going to do. I think you have to see it in person. And then the points changes, they'll give you... I think points are basically the problem with Sisters, is that they were just too expensive, which just starts to bring it in line. In the sense that the infantry is now cheaper, but the stuff like the Castigators, the Exorcists, and the Paragon Warsuits and stuff are still quite pricey. Which I think is fine because they're all really good, right? When people are like, they've had like 2 or 3 points increases and people are still taking 2 or 3 of them in their list, then they're probably still quite good. So I think this is the right direction to go. I think there's a lot of potential for Sisters, but I think their win rate's going to stay quite low because I don't think anyone's going to switch. And I don't think any of the really good players are going to switch.
You're not bandwagoning onto this. No.
I
think that's right. I think they're probably on a journey, and I think this is probably stage 1. I think we'll see potentially a few more nudges in the future that might get them up into an interesting place. But obviously, that when we're so many iterations into balancing for an edition, it does start to look quite smooth and flat, and people aren't interested in smooth and flat. People want
because
the juicy highs of a new overpowered army. Speaking of an overpowered army, Astra Minotaur also took some bops. They took some points rises. They took a change to Bridgehead, so the +1 AP strat went up in cost. And they also lost the rerolls to wound from the detachment, wasn't it? Or the boost to wound, they got a boost to hit instead.
Yeah.
So the detachment rule is reroll 1s to hit. And it used to be +1 to wound for Scion and Kassakin units when they gather, transport, or deep strike. Now it's +1 to hit for Scion units, not Kassakin units.
Completely.
So pretty substantial nerf there. There was also some points nerfs as well. 15 points on the heavy weapon squads. So that's 50 to 65, which is a considerable increase on the squad that size. Same for the heavy weapon squads. Field ordnance batteries went up 10. The Scions and the command squad both went up points, basically 10 each for the max size, and then the and one of the enhancements for Bridgehead went up as well. So a bunch of pretty directed nerfs at Bridgehead there, which I think is fine because that was the only one that was sticking its head up really.
I think that's right. I still really am excited to see what else is going on in that book, right? And I think we'll see if this maybe Bridgehead's still great. At the end of the day, dropping in and blasting someone in the face is still a very powerful thing to be able to do. What do you think, Jack? Where does this take it next?
It was one other change as well that I forgot to mention is the Krieg combat engineers, their remote
they're
nerfed, so they're only it's only 9-inch range instead of 12. You have to have line of sight, and it's only D3. But I think the Guard are an army that play very honest Warhammer as well. They trying to think of the right way. I think that there's going to be. They got a lot of potential because I think they get a lot of data sheet for their points. I think you just get a lot of guard for what you pay for.
It's just the asset richness, right? That's always been there.
There's a lot of potential there. I think it's not necessarily going to get picked up on because it's not super obvious power. But there's a lot you can do with that faction. I think.
Completely.
I think Hammer of the Emperor is really strong. I still really like Siege. I don't care if other people don't like Siege.
I like Siege. I think Siege is fun.
I think that's really solid. And combined is still really good. So it's just solid. I think it's one of the better design codexes of the edition. And I'm glad it's not like hilariously overpowered or underpowered. So it just kind of sits there in a fairly good spot. I think, much to most other Guard players. Dismay for me to say.
I think it'll be interesting to see, and I think you said we because Bridgehead was so ludicrously strong, we've just not seen where else you can take this yet. And I think I know behind the scenes, Guard players have been dabbling in different things and trying different things, but actually getting it out into events and squeezing some new uses out of the book, I think will be really exciting. So I think it'll be interesting to see. And I mean, again, we've talked about it on this show before, but the actual output in Bridgehead was just ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous. So I think it's nice to see that put in the ground. I won't miss it as such, and it'll be interesting. Maybe it probably still does have a lot of play just because the tools it leans on are so good. But I think overall that's a net positive. That's one of the meta menaces got. As far as the rest of the Imperium goes, we've got some surgery on the Golden and the Silver Boys. We have the Custodies. They get some points drops, which are all pertinent to the new detachment. It's mostly the infantry and the captains, things like that. They get points rises on the dreadnoughts, which is obviously pertinent to Solar Spearhead. Now, I don't actually know how fair that is, because Solar Spearhead, again, has been good in a skewy kind of way. But again, has it been the very, very top of the game? No, I don't think it has.
It was a great stat check, right?
I think that was it.
I think it kind of worked the same way that Knights did, except it was a little bit more unfun to play against.
I think that's completely right, yeah.
I think they were also kind of like smashing around RTTs quite a lot, which makes sense. And I think they were just not very... I think it just for like casual pickup games playing against like 10 Dreadnoughts or 8 Dreadnoughts, which just wasn't the most fun thing.
Completely.
As much as it didn't make a splash on the competitive scene so much. I think that's probably a good way to go about it, is to just tighten that one in a little bit.
And they do balance with these things in mind, right? So I think that's a very good assessment.
There is a slight argument to be made about the fact that maybe people were running that because there was nothing else to run in Custodies that was fun.
I think that's right.
That might be it. But then now we've got Lions of the Emperor, and that's everything you could ever want, as we have previously mentioned. So I think that's going to be That's 2 reasons why you're going to end up switching over there.
And I'm definitely intrigued because what we've got here, of course, is the old double lever. They've hit the new rules. They've hit the cheaper points. And whenever you pull multiple levers at once in this game, things can get spicy. So we'll see. I think observing Custodies lists, they have seemed a bit low on stuff. So actually, I'm not losing sleep over a few drops here and there. But it's going to be interesting to see. And it doesn't take much for me to immediately hate Custodies again. So let's see if it gets that far. Let's see if it gets
Wardens
that far.
At least went up though, right? So
Wardens
did get a bit of an increase, which
that's a good spot.
Which
given they are by far the most obnoxious aspect of
absolutely. No, absolutely. Give some of the other units to get a bit of limelight, hopefully.
Taking the points off the characters are definitely the way to go.
Yeah. Over in Silver Tideland, the Grey Knights, I think there's a slight adjustment to how Warpbane functions.
Yes.
Yeah, you just don't get rerolls when you're firing indirect. So there was
needs to be visible.
There were a couple of lists. I think they were mostly teams lists that were running around with triple purgation squads, I think they're called.
That is absolutely right.
Indirect
I played against Leshu from Team Poland running this, and my poor GCs were taking an absolute battering to the Psy Cannons.
yeah. So that's it. But then, they also get 5 points less on interceptors, which is weird. Like if you're going to make a points change, make a substantial points change, or just whack 5 points off in interceptors to say you did something. It doesn't really make a difference. But yeah, I mean, that's whatever.
Yeah, I think actually this is quite hefty for the way Warpbane lists were playing. With a lot of them were going for the little purgation squad backline. You clear things, you hide, you push out. So it's interesting because again, Warpbane's not been in that sort of this is the most terrifying thing in the world. We've not seen lists completely dominating the scene. We've not seen, but I think in line with how all other indirect is currently being handled, which is to smooth it down to a place where sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. I think that makes sense. So I think that's an okay change. I think it's just Grey Knights in general in a sort of mid kind of place, and this doesn't do them any favors on that score, I don't think. We've got Swissy in chat. Hi, Swissy. Says kind of struggles into high toughness, not testosterone. Talking about Custodies. Yeah, well, now they're all +1 to hit and wounds. That'll be fine. That'll be okay. They'll use the new detachment. They'll be all right. J-Mel says, why the hell did 3 factions with Codex get another detachment when Index factions are stuck juggling 2 balls? Yeah, it's interesting. I think
2 of those only got 4 detachments to begin with.
I was going to say a couple of those were underserved. I think Demons obviously aren't one. And then I think probably there's a difference now. I suspect quite a lot of work is going into the remaining codices at the moment, and that's where all their rules writing attention is. And so plugging in and adjusting things is more for the ones that have already been in a way.
It's also much easier to write detachments when you already have the codex written rather than having to have it and then hope that the codex doesn't break it later.
Yeah,
that kind of leads into what's happening with Votann, right? That we had that with a previous detachment that didn't quite make sense at Grotmus.
Yes, yeah. 100%. And Adam Richardson says, miss you, Tom. I love you, Adam. You're the best. I'm very excited to see you very soon at the GT. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Harley says, I'm really excited to look at Guard again now. Like, you get so much stuff. It's crazy. Yeah, Guard looks really good. Guard absolutely looks good. I think that's it for the Imperium. If I missed anyone off. Oh, there is the Imperial Knights, I guess, as well. So they got a couple of little drops on a couple of the big knights, but otherwise are pretty much staying the same. I think that's quite nice for them. They've been sort of creeping up in popularity and use of late.
Yeah, 30 points off the Valiant and the Castellan, which is, I mean, possibly relevant. 30 points doesn't get you very much in a Knights list. I'll be honest.
It doesn't. That's the thing. I don't know what that actually means. I'm loath to pretend it means an awful lot.
How much is an immolator? Because they like them now on their lists, right?
Yeah, I don't know. So I think Knights have certainly been doing well. So I think staying still for them does them no harm. Like, I think they're in a solid position. And if other armies are being toned down in lethality, that certainly helps them out. So I think that's interesting. I think that's basically it for the Imperium. I think they're all right. I think they are in the main there. So we're going to take it to a Xenos place now, because Harley in the chat has been talking about why Inari got nerfed so hard, and he knows he doesn't mean that. So let's start with Eldar. Right, Eldar.
Child.
Eldar book in the main has landed fine. I think the detachments are solid, but each one at the moment more or less has something that stops it being too crazy. The exception to that is probably Ynnari, where I think the rule set for Ynnari is wildly powerful and can reward sort of the player exploiting it to incredible levels, right? It is really, really strong into the right situations, into the right armies. Obviously, we've not seen any rules changes to Ynnari, which I think you can say is okay because it is early days. But what we have seen is some little points taps on the Fire Dragons. I think there's point taps on the 10 bricks of Dark Reapers, points taps on the Wave Serpent, points taps on the bigger brick of Banshees as well, I think, potentially.
Yeah, 10 points for 5 on Fire Dragons, 10 points for the first 5 on Striker Scorpions, 5 points for 5 on Dire Avengers, 15 for 10 models only on Dark Reapers, and 10 on the Wave Serpent, as well as Ynnari are allowed to be put into Falcons and Wave Serpents.
100%. And we're gonna give Jack something here because Jack always has opinions on elves. This is very, very light touch. I think this is very, very, very light touch. Yeah. I know it's complete. I'm not going to pretend it's not. I think Eldar players will feel very happy with this. I think they're walking away pretty much unscathed. And Ynnari itself, I think statistically, is creeping into the problem area. I think anyone playing against it will say it is very, very good. It's very, very strong. And it's going to continue to be for a little while. Now, the only saving grace might be that some of the other snakes they've unleashed with the new detachments might prey on it quite aggressively. I don't think it loves orcs. So it's interesting to see how it sits amongst that. But I think strong Eldar book will continue to be strong for sure.
I think in general the only issue that Eldar's had is that they're too cheap, really. Notwithstanding. Having 80 odd models in an Eldar army is kind of ridiculous.
It's the aspects in particular, isn't it? They're just priced to move.
I do think that they have been treated with the kid gloves once again. Normally, you look at what Sisters, for example, get when they were a bit too good. The kind of price increases they got compared to this, and it's a bit ridiculous. But I mean, you look at all of those units, and 80 was it? Yeah, 85 now for striking scorpions. It's still really good.
It's still very good. Yeah.
There's nothing, just as that was always the one that stood out most egregiously to me points wise. They're probably still a little bit too cheap. I kind of want to see Eldar models being 60 Eldar armies, being 60 models ish, that kind of range rather than 80. Which they're now down to probably 75. So.
100%.
Yeah,
so I think they'll continue to be a strong force. I think Cabbage Media saying you've got less than they deserve. I think that's completely fair.
Just as one side thing as well, a lot of the time people say Eldar are fine because you can they fold the pressure, they get run down, they're very squishy. I think that's really army dependent and detachment dependent.
This is completely correct. Yeah.
I don't think it's a very good design to say, well, if you were playing a different army, then you would beat me. I think that's really stupid. So
I think it's true. It is true, but they're a very extreme case of the rock paper scissors in that sense, which is no consolation when you're stuck with paper, right?
That's what I was going to say. Is that
I think Ynnari exaggerates this more than any of the other rule sets in terms of really hammers that difference home. It's very cancerous for the armies that already struggle with Eldar, and then it's got less game into things that aren't that bothered.
The cynic
Sean
in
Cable
me
says totally agree with you there. Love you, Sean. Go on then, John.
The cynic in me says that they've been a bit lighter on this because they sold out the initial run of all these units, and they haven't been able to sell more of them. Whilst the guard stuff that's been nerfed, they've got back in production. So part of me feels like some of it's that and waiting. I think
Bridgehead's also been with us longer. That's the thing. Bridgehead has been here longer, undoubtedly. So I think that is. Ed says just don't shoot them. Yeah, just don't use one phase of your output in a game, and you'll
as
be
a Tau player that sounds fine.
I would love
to just don't shoot me.
Alex, sorry, you go.
I was going to say, just one thing is, I think one of the reasons that Ynnari didn't get nerfed here is I think because it's such a complicated detachment, I think they just need more time to look at it and see
yes, I agree.
What is the finesse way they can nerf it.
100%.
They're not willing to bin a Ynnari, an Eldari detachment like they are for some other factions.
I think that's right. I think they'll find a solution. I really like Lethal Intent. I think there's some really cool things in there, but I just think, they'll need to work out what the sort of a reasonable top end of that to actually be, and we'll see that in the future. So that's the Ynnari. Over to their dark cousins. Ben, obviously, we in Drukhari land have given some fantastic.
We've had an absolute treat of a day, Tom, have we not?
Yeah.
We have
2 big things, right?
2 massive buffs.
Go on, lay it on me, Ben.
We have 10 points cheaper Kabalites.
Flipping out. That's nuts.
Crazy.
OP.
Hey,
In
there's
Ynnari,
more.
right?
There's more.
Yeah.
10 points cheaper Witches.
Oh, that's
But
beautiful.
only in Ynnari, right?
Mental. Right.
No, the Ynnari ones are both
more expensive.
The Ynnari ones are cheap as well, I think. Ynnari Incubi are cheaper than ours as well. It's worth saying.
And they're
I want that on
Archons.
record. And they're Archons. Yeah, anyway, that's a conversation for another day.
Not happy.
We don't. Yeah, it's just wild. But we are the red-headed stepchild of the Aeldari family.
Oh, my head hurts from that. That's just,
And it's fun. Me and Rob wrote some lists yesterday.
fine.
We were like, let's cook. And we're like, well, you sure can get another enhancement.
well, that's a ready meal, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Drukhari's power. This is another army. I can't gauge it. I think they, to an extent, have suffered what Jack would term competitive abandonment. They're not being played by a ton of people. They're not particularly common out there in the world at the moment. There's still a few experts and specialists plugging away. Reaper, in general, anecdotally, seems to be a great detachment. People I know are having a good time with it. I think it's holding its own perfectly well. So I think they've been cautious with it, but then every now and again they have a week where they have like a 40% win rate. So I can't really work it out. I can't really work it out for Drukhari. Certainly, there's not a ton there to be excited about, is there, Ben?
It was just a bit boring. Like, I just went back to my list and I was like, I can put in a completely useless enhancement.
Yeah.
Sure, I guess
I was conning myself. I was sort of like, I was conning myself. It's like, well, actually, if you put more Kabalites and Witches in, it's like you've got more points off. It's like me, but then I'm also making the list worse. So it's like, I think there's some interesting. Potentially some more Kabalite heavy or Witch heavy lists might have some game. I think it'd be interesting to see. Witches obviously in Reaper do go up a level because you can get lethals on them and everything else. Yeah. And that at the end of the day, that's the thing with the army at the moment. It's an army that can turn on full rerolls, lethal sustain wherever it wants. Like, it's powerful. It has real juice. Really, so you do have to be careful with it. It's got a lot of fights first. One thing I'm curious about for Drukhari is, is this, we've got Emperor's Children coming. Is an era of like slightly more combat-y, speedy things running around? Is that good for them? They like those kind of games? Or are they just going to fold up against, real tough bodies when it comes down to it? It's going to be interesting to see. I think interesting to see. For sure.
I'll be the one to say it. I don't know why they even bothered. Like
literally.
Like if you're gonna do something, right? Don't.
Yeah, for sure.
Because the problem is, I'm sitting here now and I feel obliged to change my list because I have random extra points. I don't want to.
Just,
I think
that in my head.
with a slight reconfiguration, that's like a unit of Racked or something that you didn't have before. But that is about the best that you're getting out of that. And it's not, or a Kronos perhaps, little Bibli Kronos.
Ooh.
It just comes off as very, let's just throw darts at a dartboard and see what's going to happen.
You get your win 5% on it.
Your win rate is 3% below the middle, so you get 1 dart.
And to be honest, what it also smacks of is, we don't need to worry about these in Ynnari anymore because we've already done the Ynnari ones, so now the Drukhari can have cheaper ones as well. It's like, okay, well, that's great. Especially says we can get a useless enhancement to complement our half useless detachment rule. We don't have half a detachment rule. I won't hear that slander. We have
half a range. That's the distinct difference, Davey. They have half a range.
Yeah. Drukhari and detachment rules, that's not a thing. We don't do those. We don't do that here. That's not what we're about. Absolutely. So I guess what else happened in Xenos land? There was a nice little adjustment for the Leagues of Votann, where they've had their the judgment handing out has been moved so that you can hand out 2 judgment tokens to 2 units, just irrespective of what detachment you're playing. So that sort of dilutes the reliance on the original detachment. The Oathband allows you now to get a little bit more starting power in the Hearthband. Now,
what it is really is just giving 2 extra judgment tokens to the Hearthband detachment.
Exactly.
That's all it really is, which is a great. I mean, that's what fixed Votann when they first came out to being a viable faction. There's a good chance they might do it again. So they'll just run it back, and we'll just run the same buff again. And then just try to see if it works. I don't know if I have much faith in that, but then there's no downside to this. So
it's cautious, right? They've been cautious. Votann are a shooty army. They can put a lot of firepower on the table. I think they've just been like, let's not overjuice it. I think Hearthband with its rerolls, no one's actually really played it much to see.
Yeah.
But you are talking about rerolls on sustained D3 gun tanks, and you are talking about rerolls on effectively hitting on 2s Terminators. Like there's juice in that. I don't know how it adds up compared to sustain 2 or shoot you back or all the wonderful tools that that the original Detachment has. But certainly you're like, that's a little bit more juice. That does no harm. And so I'm going to run that out with one of the back reps, and we'll see. We'll see if the Hearthband can hang. Maybe not. I don't think it radically changes things for Votann. I think they are in wait for a book territory, but at least this makes the Grotmus Detachment a little bit more functional.
You might try it now, right? Like
it's... Yeah. Try anything once, man.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, hey.
Drukhari players getting a flirt on. Oh, Barnsley, baby. Okay, well, that went too
God.
Right, okay, so I'm trying to remember what else there are in Xenos armies. Orcs. What happened for Orcs?
So shock attack guns and tank busters went up 10 points and 15 points respectively, but that's to preemptively deal with the fact that you're going to take 2 or 3 of each of them in this new detachment.
Sure.
And you were seeing tank busters in tactical brigade lists, so it's not too much of a surprise. They have had a slight tweak to the rules for tactical brigade, where
it's only one tactic ever.
Yeah.
You can't apply 2, and you always take a leadership test whenever you do it.
Yeah.
Which, is what it is. It kind of tones it down a little bit, right?
Yeah, marginally.
They also added the need to be visible for the bomb squig thing.
Yeah, and it's still 1. They've kept it as just the 1, which makes sense.
Indirect mortal wounds can get in the bin.
Yeah, it is nasty for the elves, isn't it? I think these are little adjustments. I think ultimately swapping the Mordaka detachment for a little points bump is something Orcs players will happily wear. I think they're quite happy with that.
I've written lists with 3 shock attack guns in today, so I didn't even realise they were a bit more expensive.
Yeah, I think triple shock attack gun is going to be a real feature of our lives. It's nice that thing is back. There used to be one of them. I remember you having one of them in 8th edition, John. I had
3. I had 3, Tom, at the end of 8th, and one was the relic one, because the relic one was the really obnoxious one.
That was just like, that's a dead plague burst crawler. That's a dead plague burst crawler. That's another dead plague burst crawler. Okay, so that's me done. That's me done.
I'm getting flashbacks, and I'm not sure I'm ready for it.
So Orcs certainly coming out of this quite good. I mean, Tactical Brigade got some adjustments as well. I think there were some nerfs to the rule set there. I don't know exactly what was applied, but I know that they did take a couple of little hits. But the biggest hit ultimately for Tactical Brigade is that you're not going to play it because you're going to play more Daka. So I think it's almost irrelevant what the current state of the rules of Tactical is. Swissy says, does the new detachment invalidate Dreadmob a bit? It feels like it's trying to do similar stuff. I think this is more flexible than Dreadmob. And if, Jack and I have done a video on this, so you feel free to watch it. It's a good little deep dive on it. But basically, this gives Orcs an incredible melee tool because reroll wounds is just great on Orc units.
Yeah.
But also, it gives them phenomenal power, like flexible strategic power in turning on the war on a unit in the command phase. Like that is just such a powerful tool to have. No other Orc detachment has something like it. And it opens up a whole bunch of counterpunch or push melee combinations. Like you're all going to see what happens when Zodgrot and his 20 Grot mates get the War turn 1. Like you're all going to see that pretty soon. And it involves a very obnoxious tar pit unit in your grill turn 1. It's like imagine if a beast pack had a 5-up invuln. That's that kind of vibes, right? But also, I think this basically gives you waves of pressure through that stratagem, complementing pretty insufferable guns. Whereas Dreadmob is very shooty, but also kills itself. And is largely trading on defensive strats other than the shooting. There's no melee juice up except for like unwieldy Gorkanauts, Killer Cans, these kinds of things. Because actually the reality is I'm not sure how many of the walkers you're actually going to see in Mordaka. Like I think people will dabble with them. Yeah. I'm not sure how much they'll actually see play. Because
they're still slow. They're still so slow.
It says walkers on there, but like it just means they didn't want to exclude the walkers when they were taking the vehicles out, right? Actually, it doesn't actually specifically benefit walkers like any more than it does infantry. So
still got to walk around buildings.
See, observing the conversations. Obviously, we have lots of exciting conversations today with Orc players, and it's like Killer Cans, nah,
like
Death Dreads, nah. Gorkanaut? No, like there's a sort of it's like I think people will experiment with those things, and also I think at the level of sort of mid tables and more chill players, you can just play those things in this attachment. That'll be good, and that's fun. But I think the biggest impact is going to be on good old infantry pressure orcs. Only half of that shoots you to bits, as well as punching you to bits. I think which is pretty spicy.
I think this attachment is really weird because I was thinking about it, and this kind of reads like it kind of reads like the Custodes one in the sense that it's like an apology detachment that we made your book bad, but they didn't make the book bad. So it's kind of
I
weird.
I agree. I think to an extent, it's just something that repeatedly happens with orcs. Is at some point they unleash the gun side of that army, right? At some stage they get it,
and it's not buggies this time.
Yeah,
it is weird how the detachment doesn't seem to have as solid as a theme as the other orc detachments, which are, correct me if I'm wrong, mostly based around the various orc cultures in the lore.
Yeah, if anything, those other ones are so themed that it renders them a little bit non-functional at times.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
And the only time I've ever seen, what's it called?
The Big Hunt?
No, the one that we were just...
Speedwa?
Wait.
Cult of Speed?
Dreadmob. The time I've seen Dreadmob is not when people are running an army of grot walkers and stuff like that. It's when people are saying, well, let's put a bunch of tank busters and stuff in here and get the shooting buffs out of it. Or, it's not playing to the theme of that detachment. So I guess the one benefit here we get is that if you are going to play that detachment, you're going to play it because you want to play into the theme of it rather than because you want the shooting
more
buff
honest
out of it.
about what it's doing, right?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
And I think this detachment will deliver more DACA. So if you want to play to the theme of having more DACA...
There's never enough DACA.
You can play this detachment and you'll get more DACA. Yeah, Orcs feeling like big winners coming out of this. So that's very exciting. They've obviously had a good few months already, but I think the good times are set to continue. What other Xenos are there? Necrons. Did anything interesting happen for Necrons?
10 points on a Doomsday Arc.
Oh.
Finally.
That's fine.
Hey, you keep taking 2 or 3 of these. Stop it.
Stop
That's
it.
what that is. Yeah.
Stop it.
Nose.
Remove a single destroyer. As you were. Carry on. Have a good time.
No, I won't.
Yeah. I'm literally running 3 Doomsday Arcs with a bunch of MSU idiots in front. I'll just take one of the idiots out and carry on as I was. That's fine. Yeah, so Necrons are fine. Still bimbling along pretty happily. Still one of the better armies in the game. I'm trying to think what else is Xenos.
GSC.
Oh, GSC. So GSC, basically nothing. As anything.
Plus 15 points for 20 model near-fight hybrid unit.
Oh, yeah. So if you're going pure Host of Ascension Carpet, then there's a little points love tap on that. You lose one of the MSU units out ahead of the bricks of near-fights, but nothing substantive, nothing that's really going to change the way that plays. GSC's settling down now. They've been adjusted, arriving at a fairly balanced place. And I think with some of the other things that are coming up in the slate, probably the good times are on the way down for them, maybe a little bit, I think, potentially. But still very potent, still very good at what they do. Adam Richardson asked if we cover Tau. To be fair, we didn't cover Tau points. I don't know if was there anything radical for the points?
2 changes.
Yeah, there's 10 points on the Kroot Longspear, which is whatever. You only really see it in Kroot Hunting Pack.
Which Adam does love, to be fair, so he'll be happy.
And he'll be taking this weekend.
Yes. Oh, is he? Fantastic. Okay, and then any other drops?
Okay, sorry. I had to
Rampages
deal
have
with
gone
the
down 10 as
damage
well.
of that.
Jack's dissociating.
So the Rampages have gone down 10 points per 3.
Yeah, which is actually which is a substantial change because they are actually good in auxiliary cadre. The problem is that a unit of 6 is the same points as a Riptide, and it was kind of hard to see. They weren't quite as good as that. They're solid in that detachment, but they're what that detachment is about, essentially. So that's a really nice change for them, to be honest.
Yeah, completely, absolutely. And I think it's a positive. The Rampages are a cool little unit. It's nice when they're plugged in. There are a couple of detachments that they work in. And so that's cool. And Adam, you'll have to paint another unit or something, I think, to make up the deficit if you're running the Kroot Hunting Pack. It sounds like you've got some points drops there. And Alex Fowler says, at least the Orcs detachment rules are very orky. Oh, it's phenomenally orky. It wants to go fast and punch you and shoot you really hard. It's just that sometimes when you give an army all the things it's supposed to be thematically famous for, it's quite dangerous.
Are they orky?
Are they?
Yeah. Sustain 2 feels orky.
It's whether it's accurate enough. That's the challenge. If it's too accurate, that's the problem we had with Lost
Which is
Edition.
exactly what this detachment now is. So
I mean,
I'm
the detachment rule is kind of orky, sure, but just because you say gubbins in the strategy fluff text doesn't make reroll to wounds on an objective, fallback, shoot, and charge any more orky of a rule than when
It's true, but I think just say gubbins and you're out of jail, guys. It's absolutely
exactly squiggly muffins. Done. Love it.
Yeah. Oh man, Oninada's in. Lovely to have you here. Angron says, "I meant by name only." Yeah, that is fair. That is completely fair.
There's one more Xenos faction we haven't covered.
Oh yeah,
which is Tyranids.
Of course, yeah.
So it was up 5 points for the Execution and the Tron effects, and then down 10 points on the Hive Tyrant, Neurolictor, and Trigon.
Sure.
Which I think is fine. Executions and Tron effects were everywhere, so this is one of those like encourage you to change your build kind of nerfs. And I think there's enough different changes like in there to make that an impactful. Like if you want to take 2 Neurolictors, a Hive Tyrant, and 2 Trigons, that's actually a considerable change, and you get like another unit out of that. So
100%.
Yeah, that's just increases a bit of, as Davey says in the chat, it increases the diversity of lists. Which is
I think so. I think Davey's right, and Davey in chat, our resident bug expert, says needs to find good win rate, diversity in data sheets and detachments. It's 4 or 5 different archetypes on the show this week, which is a great place to be. We've had a big focus on it in previous data slates, so it's totally reasonable for the spotlight to be elsewhere. Yeah, I think that's completely right, and I think Nibs have been branching out. They've been finding they're in an interesting spot where they can tech for almost anything out there. Or they can play Invasion Fleet and try and style it through all of it. They've got different pathways. I think Assimilation Swarm gets quite spicy after this. If some of the predators of durable things drop off, Assimilation Swarm can be very durable, very powerful. Obviously, Vanguard Nids, which I was running for Pirate, I think that has plenty of nice juicy targets to work with, and I think we've seen a couple of lists since the one I took out, which is starting to work, like Tyrannifex, hard target removal, and I think that takes those lists to some good places. So yeah, there's some cool routes. Lots of stuff going on for Nids. Sorry, go on, Jeff.
Do you want to blitz through the non-demon chaos changes? Because most of them are pretty minor, and the biggest change for them is demons changed.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the right way to handle it. So I think if we just absolutely speed run us on the chaos stuff, Jack, and then we will then we can move on to the demons.
Okay. So we'll start with the World Eaters. So Demon Princes of both varieties went down 15 points. Lord and Juggernaut went down 20, and both varieties of Predators went up by one went up by 5, one up by 10. I think the Predator change is universal to all Predators in Chaos, so that's just why that change is there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that changes any builds. Maybe it does.
There's a couple of the ones in the new detachment have the Demon Prince in and the Juggernaut in. But it's nice small. It's small change, so it's hard to know. And without knowing the army well, it's hard to know what that means for the unit count.
Thousand Suns. We've got 5 points up on the Vortex B, 5 points up on both on the Annihilator, 10 points to the Destructor, 10 points for the Vindicator. Again, Vindicator is a game-wide change. But we're looking at points down, 10 for Zangors for a big unit, 10 for Enlightened if running a big unit, Cultist, -10 if running a big unit, -10 for the Sorcerer, the Terminator Sorcerer, sorry. I was gonna say that doesn't really narrow it down.
The Wizard got cheaper.
And minus 10 per 5.
Magnus got cheaper? Shit.
No.
Minus 10 per 5 for Scarab Occult Terminators, which I think just gives them a slight more points where they want it to be, and points increases where they generally don't use those units anyway. So I don't really think it's a substantial nerf. I think it's like a very minor buff.
Yeah, I think it's good. It definitely will frustrate the existing lists and force a bit of a rethink up, especially the ones Vortex beasts have been very staple. The Terminator thing, I love that list. I played the 10 Terminators Let's Go Brit a few times. It's really fun. I don't know how competitively viable that list is because, again, even with a little points drop, it's still so many eggs in one basket, and it just doesn't work the same way with Cabal and Cabal points and different things. And obviously, catching some strays on Vindicators and Preds and stuff that you never actually see in Thousands. I mean, I think it's pretty minor for all those armies. Was there anything for Death Guard? Did they get the same taps on the tanks?
they got the same tax on the Predators, and then the Mephitic Blight Haulers went down 5 per.
They're desperately trying to get us to a point where we use those.
But the main changes for them are the Nurgle Demons changing considerably. They got quite substantial buffs on the Nurgle Demons.
It's a lot of big changes. Yeah.
But the Nurgling -1 to hit doesn't stack with their Contagion anymore, which is quite a noticeable.
That's a positive because that was ridiculous. Yeah, that's very, very annoying. So little tweaks there. Death Guard do like to spam Predators, so a little nudge on the Predators probably does adjust them. There's probably a unit going somewhere from that. But all those factions basically being left, I guess they've got new rules in the not too distant future, don't they? So I suspect we'll see books starting to come out for those Chaos factions soon.
CSM kind of in the same position. Their Predators have gone up, but their Forge Fiends have gone down, and the Lord Discordant's gone down 15. There's no rule changes, but again, demon changes are really what's substantial there. I don't think you take a Lord Discordant based off this. But
I don't think you do.
But that Forge Fiend change is nice for stuff like Soul Forge, Warpack, and
and Pac-Man. They both like the Forge Fiend. Yeah, 100%. I'd be quite interested to see 180 point Forge Fiend does feel quite nice with the rerolls. As long as you've got the good rerolls on it, that is a spicy meatball. CSM settling down, really, aren't they?
Yeah. And then lastly, the Chaos Knights. We got 10 off the Desecrator, 15 off the Despoiler, and 30 off the Tyrant, which is just more off big knights. Eventually, someone will take one. We swear. Just keep making the point.
Oh, look, it's still 13 dogs. We'll see. We'll see what it takes to finally get a big Chaos Knight on the table.
That's all of the Chaos factions that are not demons.
They've put them in, but it's for non-tournament settings for the Emperor's Children. So it's a weird one where they've given you extra points.
The crucial thing is just that the Emperor's Children points are lower. They are lower. Yeah. They're coming in low. They're coming in cheap and nasty on some things, and not on Fulgrim. Is the gist. Fulgrim looks a bit expensive. Everything else looks cheap and nasty. Noise Marines look nice and cheap. Price to move. Price for everyone to buy 18. And then all the little infantry should be really good. So I think EC will be a flash flood of colour and violence coming out the gate, and probably going to be quite good. So that's where we're at with them. JML says for T-Suns, it means I get another enhancement. So happy days. I find that fascinating. And they're not 3 enhancements that T-Suns just always take. Has that not always been the way the whole time? I thought they got the crystal, you got the flamer thing. There's a Noise Marine on best screen. That's great. What's the other one? Oh, the double Cabal. Where's this 4th enhancement you plug it in? Adam Richardson says, "Woo." Yeah, I mean, I think EC will make a splash when they come. Actually, and I quite like this model. This is where the quarterly things are fun. If you unleash a few new scary detachments at the same time as one of these touted new books coming out, that keeps it just a bit spicier and more interesting at the top. I don't want to play through 3 months of everyone playing Emperor's Children. It'd be nice to have the mix. So I think that's good. Yeah. And as Alex Fowler in the chat says, one of the big things for CSM will be, are you still able to take Noise Marines in CSM? Because if you are, there is some very spicy application of Noise Marines in CSM. I think it's fair to say. They don't get any real support in Emperor's Children for the shooting output particularly, but they will definitely get it in CSM.
Yeah, especially in Renegade Raiders.
Yeah, Renegade Raiders, very tasty.
Will they get... They'll get their own points, but it'll be the same data sheet pasted across, won't it?
It's always been it's the same. Whatever play greens are out in Death Guard, you'll pay the same in CSM, etc. So, and they take some of the CSM buffs pretty hungrily.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that. Hopefully they will be. So Jack, do us the download on demons then, because this is where we saw the most seismic change. Let's bring it home with demons.
Let's start with the points. First of all, just unless chariots are gone, the corn character dog is gone.
Yeah, Karanak, the best boy.
How dare you?
Points wise, 50 points on Be'lakor. Good, he's always overpowered. Then in terms of Slanesh stuff, we got 20 points on the Epitome. 5 points for 3 on the Fiends. Galaxy went down 45 because she's got the Emperor Children's data sheet now.
Yeah, so those rules are coming over, right? Which are substantially less.
Yeah, the Mask went up 10, and I think the Keeper of Secrets went up 10 as well, or maybe that's 10 with the enhancement. I can't quite remember. But yeah, that's them. The Flesh Hounds went up 5, but they got a new data sheet rule. They now have Uppy Downy.
Oh, fun!
So cool.
Which makes them an incredible demon ally.
That's not very flesh hounds of them.
I think it might
very,
be
very annoying. That is so annoying.
It might be the Raptor one where if they kill a unit, they get to uppy downy.
Oh, sure.
The what else would we get? Flamers are down points. The Nurglings are down points. Screamers are down points. And then in terms of the Nurgle stuff, Great and Clean one went up 20, and then Endless Gift went up 15 as well. So it's that's
fair.
Quite a lot more points. Rottgust went up 20, and that's all I've got.
And the Great Unclean one, there was datasheet changes for some of the Noble Demons as well, right?
Yeah. So let's see if I got them here. So the Slanesh Demons ones are basically made the same as the Emperor's Children's Slanesh Demon ones.
Yep. And then the rules in the Slanesh Detachment basically taken outside and shot as well, right? They took
So there's some there's a couple of minor changes, like Beasts of Nurgle, like slightly buff, Flesh Hounds, big buff on them, I would say. Great and Clean ones, Bellacore, Scarbrand, those things all slightly change. The Legion of Excess, as you say, has been basically put out to the back and shot. It doesn't protect vehicles anymore, so sorry, Soul Grinders. It's only 9-inch range and requires visibility, which is kind of the change that everyone really wanted.
Just fundamentally changes how it works. Yeah.
The Overwhelming Excess stratagem is just flat -1 to hit, -1 to hit in the shooting phase or fight phase, which I think it was just doing a battle shock as well before.
Yeah, it was a battle shock, and you can't shoot me.
It was battle shock and can't be shot. Yeah,
that's the worst. And then
it's not your favourite, is it, Jack?
That's how you really feel, Jack.
I've lost 2 games in the past to the changeling, and I don't want to keep doing that. And then the detachment rule was reroll 1s to hit and wound instead, but in full rerolls to hit and wound in the Shadow of Chaos.
Yeah, so that is a huge tone down, which is for the best. Definitely for the best. So I think Slanesh will disappear. And Demons players will have to console themselves with all the other cool stuff they've just been given.
I think the so I've just got there's so many changes here.
No, this is the thing. This is exactly why we didn't cover it today. Well. Like it's enormous. Noble Demons. I think some of the headlines for Noble Demons was that the Great and Clean one buffs toughness now. So you're gonna have T13 Great and Clean ones running around.
Nurgle's probably the best one. So let's start with them. So Roger's got a 6+ Feel No Pain, and his the range of his of his special rule went to 24. And then his OC and debuff aura is now -2 to the movement and OC rather than halving.
Okay, so that's a mild nerf on Roticus in some ways, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Still very good.
He also gained a 6+ Feel No Pain as standard.
Oh, nice. Good for him.
The Great Team one
Disgusting.
also gets a 6+ Feel No Pain as standard. Which is replacing the aura of 6+ Feel No Pain used to give out, and now it gives out +1 toughness in an aura, which making it toughness 13. We've already talked about Nurglings, and then Beast of Nurgle getting Scout 6.
Yeah, that's funny. Beast of Nurgle are so annoying. I hate them so much. Now they can get mid-board early game. It's just even more problems. Pretty funny. But yeah, so there's a lot going on there. I think it's obviously the goal is to redistribute the focus with demons. I think Nurgle feel like good winners because, to be honest, Nurgle were good already. Nurgle Demons are a really obnoxious build to play against, very strong in its own right, and now gets some buffs. And they're looking just very powerful. They're just having one of those years, Demons, where they get treated, they get wined and dined, they get good things.
Just checking the Flesh Hound rule. It is just a straight up uppy downy.
That's really good.
So good.
Out of nowhere. What else we got for Khorne? Blood Crushers now have a 3-up save.
Their Invan went to 5, not 4, so that was a slight nerf on Blood Crushers.
Right, okay. And then their Skull Takers, slightly faster and got a better save. And then Scarbrand got +1 to his armor save, he's a 3-up. His shooting attack becomes strength 8, AP 1, and his sweep attack went to -2 rather than -1.
Sure, okay.
And then his +1 attack aura now affects monsters. And then he swapped his no fallback aura thing for advance and charge.
Yeah, so just go fast, hit things. Yeah,
yeah.
So there's a lot going on for demons. It's another can of worms has been opened. I think there's going to be all sorts of experimentation, especially with the new detachment. The Shadow Legion looks really fun, really good. And obviously, the index one, and indeed the god specific ones, all have a new lease of life opened up by little buffs to some of the different data sheets in there. And then obviously Slaanesh gets buried. And I don't know. Maybe the plan is to rotate around the entire demon range until they've cleaned out the warehouse and then sort them out. I don't know. Who knows how these logics work? We'll see what the goal with demons is, but we're still a little way off seeing that.
Yeah.
So I mean, those are the headlines, right? I think we've essentially.
Oh, and they got a new detachment, but there's a lot there, right, to cover.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
And
I think the new detachment is very Be'lakor Disciples themed. It's CSM allies souped in. You can essentially get little mini buffs for each of the different god types, so you're sort of working with lots of different synergies across it. And it looks powerful and strong. It has some really cool enhancements. I think it's got some really cool tricks and tools in there, and I think the Khorne demons really like it. I think the Nurgle demons really like it. So it's just leaning a little bit away from some of the stuff we've seen in more recent times, more heavily focused on. And I think obviously it brings Be'lakor back. Bellacor's obviously been good the whole time, but I think they're amping him up to make him a bit more dangerous. That's always the complaint I have with demons players. My guy that teleports my entire army around the board whilst keeping them safe from shooting doesn't also kill everything he touches.
But he's going to kill a lot of stuff.
Oh, he is
now, but with
he's pretty blendy. Yeah, he's looking pretty good. So we'll come to that another day.
I mean, demons were good before, right? They were really solid before.
Good. They've just been good all edition.
They're probably better now. I think as an ally as well for a lot of the Chaos factions. Going to see a lot of Khorne Hounds. So good. I think like less Nurgle, more Khorne Hounds. A lot of good stuff. I think they're firmly better than where they were before, which is as I think the way you put it, it's the Tom earlier was the petrol station flowers.
That's very much what it is.
So we're not quite sure how that's going to go.
This is petrol station flowers from Games Workshop for the demons. They've been being given them all edition, and GW is guilty about something. We wonder what it is.
They're going to go and get some cigarettes from the garage at the end of the edition and never come back.
100%. So, more to see on that. I think, that's all the main notes covered, guys. I think that's very interesting. Obviously, if you in the chat have any more questions about the Dataslate or anything you'd like us to dive into, feel free to chuck them in. Thanks for supporting us thus far. Please do hit the old like and subscribe before we close up shop. That really helps us, helps the YouTube algorithms very much. It'd be lovely to have so many of you here. What I'm going to do is open up to my cast of players here and just ask them how they feel this Dataslate lands. Is it a big shake-up? Are we happy with it? Do we like what we're seeing? Anything sort of major to take away from it?
I think it's potentially a big shake-up, right?
I think it's pretty ambitious.
This could either go great or horribly wrong, and I can't wait to find out. And I think as part of that, I'm quite sad about the Slaanesh detachment. I think it's been touched a little bit too much. I think.
You don't really want that to be dead, right? That's
it was kind of cool. I think it just needed a few little bits here and there. Exactly. So it's a bit of a shame, but. Pretty good data slate for most people, I think, but
I think so.
It could be pretty spicy. Let's
I think for me, I like the width of it. I just like that it's attacking and creating a whole bunch of new opportunities and challenges all at the same time. I think that following on from Grotmus just creates so much sort of discombobulation of the competitive scene that you're like, who knows what exactly the right thing to do is, and in that environment, that's when players knuckle down and play the things they want to play. And I think that's great. So with the potential outliers of Orcs and Eldar, you could look at Orcs and Eldar and think maybe they'll simply be too sexy for people to resist in the short term. And actually, to be fair, demons maybe as well. I think I could see demons falling in that camp, but need to see how the units all shake out. I
mean, we're still not killing great unclean ones, right? So,
there was a little moment. There was a moment in the Drukhari chat where one of the guys was like, "Maybe I'll put some heat lancers on my Talos," and we're all like, none of it will help. Don't try and tech for demons for Drukhari. Just accept your loss. Go into it with a smile. That's happening anyway.
I think in terms of overall meta, I think there's a couple of really interesting things here. I think Orcs Custodes are looking at coming up. I mean, Orcs are already way up there. They're going to probably stay at the top. Custodians definitely have potential to make a run for it. Demons as well are going to be a top army, I think, alongside Aeldari. And then I think possibly the Sisters change remains to be seen if that is a big change for them.
That'd be a good bet for a sleeper, right?
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see if they come back. And it's just, are the people who might experiment with Sisters gonna do it or not, right? I think it's interesting.
Yeah, so and then I think that's basically, I think they're going to be the top contenders in the next meta. The things you have to watch out for at tournaments at any rate.
Yeah, completely. I think there's going to be all sorts going on, but I think I think it's not unreasonable to see those things as very powerful. Swissy says final day. Swissy still is on the final day Kool-Aid at the moment.
Yeah,
a lot of people tell me that's good. I'm waiting to see it.
Those points changes are good for final day. They're all units that you like to use.
Yeah, completely. So I think final day. I think Tyranids and GSC definitely sitting pretty happily in and amongst it as armies that were good, were doing a thing well, and haven't taken any serious adjustments. So it'd be interesting to see. And obviously, I think for some of the Chaos factions, we're in waiting for book territory now. We want Emperor's Children out there. We want Thousand Suns out there. Death Guard, World Eaters. Those kind of releases, I think, will provide the next wave of shake-ups if those sorts of things start being announced and turning up in the future. Hopefully, they will be. Or just don't. Yeah, Jack doesn't want anything to do with
that.
Maybe Tau will be good to them. Yeah. I'm going to end with this comment from our very own lovely Adam Richardson, who says, I'm looking forward to the weekend, that's our GT, and have even less of a clue what's going on than I would have had. You and everybody else, it is going to be the Wild West at our GT up in Barnsley this weekend, because we are having the slate, we're having the new rules, we're having all of it. People will be submitting lists very soon. And we'll get to see what all of this means in practice. I'm very excited. But if I was Jack Tight, I wouldn't be unhappy with the way the rules changes have fallen in the last couple of days. Going into a 6++ GT, I think I'd feel pretty happy about that.
If I were Jack, I'd be pretty happy in general, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty good. And you know what? He's a pretty happy guy, Jack. He's a pretty happy guy. On that note, we will say goodbye. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. We'll see you all again very soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.